Hello and welcome to Basins and Beer. I'm Blue Spikes. Today's going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to talk about our app quite as much. I'm going to focus on what's going on with the industry, with stocks and with oil price, and just try to give you some insight. You can see I've got my little buddy back here. His name is Reggie. Hopefully he won't bark and try to interrupt the whole video. I'm going to shrink this screen here and then just get into sort of the meat of where I want to go with this video. This is a graph. This is just on Google. It's the oil price that we've been experiencing since the pandemic. You see everything kind of bottomed out over here, and then we had the nice recovery, and we were well over 100. That's an area where oil price or oil companies are happy, but consumers are not very happy. So when it settled into this area and it was sort of going down to maybe 65 up to maybe 80, that was a good range for everybody. I think that keeps gas prices at a reasonable level. Oil companies can keep drilling, so it's kind of a happy medium. And then we've had what I would probably have to describe as the beginnings of a crash of the oil prices. And if you look at energy stocks, you see kind of the same thing. So we had the pandemic and all the stocks kind of bottomed out. Energy came back strong, and this is comparing to the overall S&P 500. So oil stocks actually outperformed the S&P, and then they kind of leveled off, which is what oil stocks tend to do, is they don't tend to grow quite as quickly as some of the tech stocks. But here they had the nice recovery, and then they kind of flattened out. But then you see this huge drop. So what we're seeing right now is kind of an unfortunate situation where trade policy is impacting demand, which is impacting oil price. And I can tell you, based on what our clients are telling us and what just industry professionals are reporting, rigs are dropping. And we can see, actually we can see in our app, that's where I'll kind of kick it back to our app. We're down 2 rigs this week versus last week. We're down 30 at this time last year versus now. So overall, this is a pretty bad time, and it looks like it's probably the beginning of the bad time. So kind of where this leads me is to try to convince everyone that instead of only focusing on what is going wrong, know that whenever things are bad, there's always an opportunity out there. So if you can get yourself into a position where you have the right tools and the right information, you can start to get, into a position where you're creating your own opportunities. And that's what I think our application will do for you. So I'm not going to get too deep into it. I'm just going to give a quick primer for those of you who haven't seen it. So this is an oil and gas application. It's called ESA Analytics. You can see I've got a layer opened up. This just shows our current coverage. We'll be adding the eastern half of the United States throughout this year. So in all of these areas, we have production, we have surveys, we have logs, we have completions. You can look at reservoir models. I mean, there's just a lot of information. And depending on the state resource, because this is all publicly sourced data, some states are going to have more content than others. Some states just don't produce that much information. Some states don't have that much drilling, which is what you can see here. The red areas are the counties with the most wells. So this is Wyoming, this is Colorado, this is Utah. New Mexico has a lot down here in the southeast corner, and then in this Four Corners area of Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, and Arizona, you have a lot of drilling, not so much on the Arizona side, but still that same Four Corners area. Up through Kansas and Oklahoma, there's a lot of drilling. Then, of course, southeast Texas and West Texas, the Barnett here in the middle. So the other thing I can do is I can show you regions, which is kind of how we break everything down. You need to figure out which region you're interested in looking at, and each region is based on different geologic properties or formations. Like, what is it that they're targeting? So that's kind of how you start with the application. You can pick any one of these. Let's just say Anadarko. And we'll load that up. I can tell you this is in Oklahoma and up into Kansas and a little bit into the Texas Panhandle. This is a big basin, so over 120,000 wells, so it does take a second to load, but just like that, it's ready. We need to color by something, so otherwise you just end up with a bunch of gray dots. So just like that, we can load up the Anadarko Basin, colored by formation, and you can see this is sort of the distribution of wells. And obviously there are a lot of wells in the Anadarko Basin. So this is the Oklahoma side and over here into the Texas Panhandle. I said it was Kansas, but we have another, the Anadarko Shelf, which goes up in here, and that's what actually goes up into Kansas. So the Anadarko Basin with the shelf, there were just too many wells to try to put into one region, so we broke it into two regions. But anyway, the other thing you can do is get in here and look at things like production. If I want to see what oil production looks like, it's just as easy as selecting the oil. And just like that, we can see what the oil production is. Now this is cumulative, so if you want to look at the per well, changes it slightly. If you want to look at things like completions, let's say you want to look at proppant. You can do that as well. So this tells you how much proppant they are using in these areas. And so there's just a lot of different tools. So you can go through all these different regions, you can choose all these different properties and plot and color by any of them. So well spacing, well density, you have with completions, you have your proppant fluid, acid, perfs. Again, completions tends to be the leanest because that's the hardest to get out of these states, but some states we have really good completions data. By formation, you can click on TVD subsea thickness. In some of the other basins, we've already implemented our reservoir model. We haven't done that yet in the Anadarko Basin, but this will allow you to look at thickness of each formation and TVD subsea. So if I choose thickness, I can select any one of these formations. We also have the sidebar that opens up and it gives you a scatter plot. So, and a bar chart, so you can look at these same wells, but in a different context. So in this case, we're looking at producing length versus BOE. Down here, number of wells, and so it tells you, because we've colored by proppant, that's what the y-axis is indicating. And then we have subsurface tools where you can look at gun barrels. We have logs. We have a table. You can open up the table and look at what all of this data looks like in tabular form. You can filter here by the table. We have production, and you can always close the map if you want to open up the table and make a bigger version of the table. You can filter down by any of these properties, either using the table or in this pull down menu. So I can select an operator just from the list if I know who I'm looking for. If I want to put in an API list, I can just paste in an API list and it'll filter down to just those wells. In the settings, we have different options that will help customize the way that the app works for you. Columns, so this, I can turn on different columns in the table, so that allows me to see the data. So a lot of these are hidden so that the table's not so big, but you can turn them on if you want to see the data in the table. Units, you can switch between different units. We can normalize by length or by time, and then you can aggregate by any one of these different properties. And then one really cool thing we have, they're called sessions. So if I get my application and I get all my data just how I want it, and I want to be able to get back to that point without having to go through all the steps again, I can save a session. And if I save a session like this one, I can just copy that session code and send it to somebody. So anybody else who has the app, I can send them the session code and they can load up my session. So it's just kind of a cool way to save your work and be able to share it quickly and easily. That is the whole point of this application, is that it's quick and easy, and it gives you sort of maximum flexibility, and it's super effective. So I won't go on too much more. In these videos, I always showcase a beer. Today, I'm doing a beer from Cerebral Brewing. It's called Tactical Maneuver, which is what I think this application represents. So until next time, cheers.